Hi everyone, I'm Professor Tech, and this week we're talking about 5 of the features that we want to see in Valve's next iteration of the Steam Deck. From the small things to the big things. It's good to be back, and let's go! So the Steam Deck is coming around on its 2nd year in the market, and it remains one of the key competitors in the handheld gaming market. But with the recent release of the ROG Ally, both online and in-store at places like Best Buy, along with other competitors in the space, the Steam Deck is already beginning to show its age, even after just a year over in the market. And while Valve continues to support their handheld PC community like no other, there's only so much that software and bug updates will be able to continue to fix. From limited power, to known hardware issues, to limitations set by the fact that the console was designed a few chip generations ago, there are some things that could definitely use an upgrade. So let's talk about it. A 1080p screen. This is one that several people in both the Steam Deck communities and handheld communities at large have been asking for, and for quite a while. Back in 2017, the Nintendo Switch hit the scene and demonstrated that, at the time, a 720p screen was effectively more than enough for the types of games that could be taken portably at the time. And with its added dock, a first of its kind at the time, it really had no competition. The dock players were treated to anywhere from a 720p up to a potential 1080p image that was able to stream to their TVs, with most people in 2017 still rocking 1080p HD TVs. Makes sense. But in recent years, 4K TVs have gotten increasingly affordable, and with each passing year, 1080p is becoming the new 720p, and before too long, it'll be the new 480p. And that brings me back to the Steam Deck. Why is it that Valve released a system in 2022 with a 720p screen, especially when everyone around them is carrying a 1080p or even a 4K screen in their pocket in the form of their phone? I can't show you my phone right now because I'm using it as part of the teleprompter, so you have to imagine that I have a Samsung Galaxy 23 Ultra here. That's right, I got the pin, boy. Because at the time, small form CPUs and GPUs were not nearly as powerful as they are now. In just the last 2 years, we've seen performance jumps in the double digits year over year, and now we are approaching a point where true desktop level performance is possible in the palm of your hands without necessarily watering it down too much either. At the time, the Steam Deck was innovative, and it still very much is. I've gotten my hands on an ROG Ally test unit before it released, and although unfortunately I couldn't keep it, I can assure you that while some people may disagree, the Steam Deck is still more comfortable in my opinion. But based on my very limited time I had with the Ally, I really liked the updated screen. You can definitely tell a major difference between 1080p and 720p at that size. And the upgraded color gamut was also a major plus because it had much more vibrant colors that were true to form without having to use a third-party plugin that more or less fakes those issues. More on that in a previous video I made. However, quick aside, the face buttons on the ROG Ally, not a fan at all. They're way too mushy, but I digress. But a device that has pretty stellar buttons, the PlayStation-themed backbone controller for your smartphone. This isn't an ad. I'm just gonna have a review for one of those coming up in a few weeks. So if you're interested in that and more Steam Deck and more gaming content in general, make sure to hit the subscribe button up above so that you don't miss a thing. Hall effect joysticks in the box. Okay, so the modding community might come after me on this one because yes, technically you can already get Hall effect joysticks for the Steam Deck 1, and that's totally justified. But looking at this from the viewpoint of a regular end user, somebody who might have bought a Steam Deck for their young kid, or they're not as much of an enthusiast as someone who watches YouTube videos about upcoming features that they want to see in a sequel to that same unit, this is something that the average user might not know about or even consider. However, they will eventually feel it as joystick drift continues to be the bane of existence on the current gaming market for both Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and yes, even Steam Deck owners. So what's the solution? Just make Hall effect story sticks standard. Like, it's that simple. Just make it come with that in the box. Ask anybody who has really spent time with Hall effect joysticks and they'll tell you the same thing. I forgot joysticks had drift, which is exactly how I feel. I use an Xbox controller with Hall effect joysticks and it has so many hours on it at this point that it really should be drifting. Every other controller I put that many hours on would have already started to drift weeks, if not months ago. And joystick drift isn't anything new to gaming. In the days of old, such as the PlayStation 1 and 2, joystick drift was all too common, along with other issues such as sticking and total braking just from regular use. So while drift is super annoying, it used to be noticeably worse and had more issues, but we shouldn't accept that as the norm either. So Valve, make Hall effect joysticks standard in your next generation of consoles. Pretty please? Speaking of pretty, More color choices. So while it may be exceptionally taboo to say I want anything other than matte black or matte white in my tech, I do really enjoy having a colorful handheld when I'm on the go. I think this is another area where Steam could learn from Nintendo a little bit, at least from an uber-oriented business mindset. The Nintendo Switch, along with its predecessors, the Wii, DS, and 3DS, all had several different color variants, and while most consumers usually only buy one, there is a massive market for multiple Switch ownership. I personally know several normies and enthusiasts alike that own multiple Switches. Hell, I own 3 of them myself, although one is a Project Switch and one is a Switch Lite. But I bought the Switch Lite for one really stupid reason, and it's because I just really liked the blue Game Boy Advance color scheme. That's literally it. I liked it because it reminded me of my childhood, and I'm a sucker for nostalgia. Sue me. Yeah, I'm bad with money when it comes to games. Good any other time, but absolute garbage when it comes to games. Please, someone help me. And then I, of course, bought the OLED model when it came out, and it remains my main Switch and the one that I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom on relentlessly for hours on end. And speaking of Joy-Con drift, that's something that's definitely going to be coming to me soon because of that game alone. So when the next Steam Deck releases, it would be great to have some official color choices when you order the unit, because while I love my Steam Deck and the matte black finish, I have grown to like my leather skin for it quite a bit. But the more I think about it, the more I want a Game Boy Advance hard shell for it. Speaking of hard shells, the specs or specifications. I'm sorry, honestly, I couldn't think of a good segue for shells, so like, sue me. Already made that joke twice, but it's true, albeit kind of a given. With any first generation product, you're going to have early adopters followed by the mainline user base. And if the first product does well, then in theory, the second generation will absolutely blow it out of the water in terms of sales and prominence. Take the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox 360. Relatively speaking, both completely demolished their predecessors in terms of sales, even if one of them demolished itself internally over and over and over again. Then you move on to the third generation, and this is where a lot of convenience factors come into play, but often companies get a little bit too comfortable with themselves and start to slip up a little bit. The PS3, completely overpriced. The Xbox One? Do we even need to talk about the Xbox One? The Wii U? Well, it technically wasn't the third generation, but it was the third generation from the GameCube, which is my favorite console of all time, so in that way, in my mind, it's why it failed. So the specifications, now that we're back on topic, for the Steam Deck 2 will probably blow us out of the water, and I think Gabe will come down from his pristinely kept bedroom themed with Portal pillows and CSGO skins and bless us with a 1440p 3080 Ti levels of gaming on the go device. But seriously, I think we could genuinely ask for a 1440p screen that could down-res to 1080p just to have a little bit of soft future-proofing for games that have lower graphical demand, just so we can have some of that crisp visual fidelity. And I think we could have a massively more powerful CPU and GPU without the need for a much larger battery or battery draw, thanks to performance increases in battery usage. And having a higher internal memory, particularly at the current 64GB price point, which is effectively just saying that you have to buy an SD card. It would be super appreciated if the baseline model was at least 512 gigs. Designing the Steam Deck 2 specs would be a challenge, a task, a question to be answered. Some might even call it an art form to be found. Speaking of art, no, I'm just kidding. Let's just move on to the next one in our list. Improved desktop experience. I absolutely love the desktop experience on the Steam Deck, and after getting over some of the operating adjustments, moving from Windows to a Linux-based system, I have to say I really like how clean the interface is and how fluidly it works. And I'm a huge fan of the generally great usage when in handheld mode as well. But something that has really bothered me is how much of a performance drop I experience when I play some of my games in desktop mode. I don't know if this is a user issue or if there are just better optimizations when it's running in the SteamOS/Steam side of things on the Steam Deck, but I do think there's some room for improvement there. In addition, I think that an updated Proton layer would be immensely helpful. It's just something that's more efficient. Don't get me wrong, the current Proton translation layer is nothing short of a goddamn miracle, and the fact that so many games, even those listed as just playable or unknown, still play is mind-blowing. I remember running a Linux laptop at one point in college and trying so hard to use wine layers and other plugins just to get basic applications and installers to work, and it was a massive headache, and it often just wouldn't work. And it was so broken that ultimately I decided it wasn't worth it, got rid of that laptop, and I bought a MacBook and then came back to the Windows side of things because I'm not nuts. And along comes the new Proton with Steam Deck, and all of that changes. For the most part, pretty much any Windows application I want to install just works. So seeing an updated version of this software that runs more efficiently with less performance loss, even more compatibility, and the ability to conveniently work with anti-cheat software, which seems to have been the bane of the Steam Deck's existence for a lot of multiplayer games, would be an absolutely wonderful thing. And as an added bonus, the ability to run other launchers like those from Epic, Rockstar, and Ubisoft would also be much appreciated, but I already know that's asking too much. It would take away from Steam altogether, and Gabe wouldn't like that very much, and we can't be having that for our god in the sky. I'm being sarcastic, he's just another person like you and me. So what do you think of my list? What other things would you like to see in the Steam Deck 2? Make sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, hit the like button, and if you didn't like it, still hit the like button anyway, so that you don't hurt my feelings personally. I love you all, and I will see you all soon. Bye, my friends.